Hi, welcome to the Herbal Hour. I'm your host, Stephen Horne, and with me is my good friend, naturopathic Dr. Kimberly Balas. And Kim, nice to have you today.
Thanks.
Now we're going to talk about an interesting subject, colon cleansing. It's a simple secret to better health, and it's something that natural healing circles talk about a lot. And some people really think it's kind of bunk, but I found it to be a very beneficial therapy. And many of you have seen the model we're going to show here, the disease tree. And basically this is a model we use to illustrate, instead of working on the health conditions themselves, you work on their root causes. And one of the big root causes that we talk about is toxic overload. And one of the biggest places we get toxic overload is in our colon. So let's start off talking about how we understand the problem of toxic overload, what's going on in our digestive tract. So Kim, why don't you tell us a little bit about where these toxins come from?
There are a couple of different sources of toxins, Stephen. We have the ones that are generated in the body, which are your metabolic waste from where the cell creates energy and it has garbage that it has to take out. Microbial toxins, which are generated toxins from other bacteria agents in the body. Exotoxins are the ones that actually come from our environment, which would be a very, very long list environmentally. It's not just air pollution or water pollution. It's food additives and things as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, in acute illness, in my experience, the body is always congested with toxins, and these are primarily the endotoxins, the result of the body's own waste material and also microbial waste material. And so whenever you have a colds and flu, fever, sore throats, earaches, acute headaches, etc., cleaning your system out is one of the best ways to overcome this illness. I've been using a model for years called the furnace analogy, which basically says our body is sort of like a wood-burning stove or a furnace. We take in fuel in the form of food. We breathe in air. Our body and the mitochondria of our cells combusts that fuel, oxidizes it using the oxygen, creates energy, and in like any machine that burns fuel, it's going to generate waste, and that waste has to be removed from the system. When one's colon gets kind of constipated and when it gets kind of plugged up, this next slide shows what that's like. It's sort of like the creosote and soot building up on the chimney, so the ventilation isn't as good, the wastes aren't being removed, and it starts to impede the metabolic fire and you get sick. So what's happening in acute illness is, generally speaking, the next slide, the body is actually trying to flush the waste. So if the flat line, horizontal line, represents your normal state of energy production in the body, what happens in acute disease is the body elevates energy production, basically hyper responds or becomes hyperactive, trying to flush these toxins and irritants from the system, and that creates a disease crisis where the body expels the irritations and then returns to normal level. When the body isn't able to expel these irritants, what happens is shown in the next slide. The body becomes progressively weaker and the toxins sort of settle into the tissues, and the body goes from the acute stage to a subacute stage, which is being congested, to a chronic stage, which is being tissue depressed and function underactive, and then into a degenerative stage where tissue starts to break down. So basically, this process of toxicity is involved in all disease, both acute and chronic. And Kim, why don't you tell us about some of the chronic illnesses that are probably linked primarily with the environmental kind of toxins?
I think there are so many of them that are probably linked with environmental toxins. The first two that we have on the list are allergies and asthma. And these are very common, especially in adults that have grown up as children with parents smoking in the house, or have that weakness.
Or in cities like Mexico City with huge air pollution.
Right. So those two are definitely can be generated from the environment. Autism, we're looking at that with the thimerosal link of the mercury in the vaccines. autoimmune disorders, your MS, your lupus, Epstein-Barr, a lot of your myasthenia gravis, things like that, fibro even, showing up as a chemical irritation that might have come from the environment that's interrupted like a nerve transmission signal. So the body can't determine what's self or not self, and it starts attacking itself in the autoimmune disorder. Birth defects, especially from particular herbicide, pesticide things. Malathion actually acts as an abortifacient that can abort a fetus during pregnancy if exposed to malathion. Cardiovascular diseases, cancer, chronic headaches, fatigue, all of these are products of our environment. Also kidney disease, because we're having to process the toxins out, so it puts stress on the kidney. Learning disabilities. Our ADD and ADHD, it's shown that red and blue dyes aggravate this, and especially metals have aggravated this. Mental retardation, senility, liver disease, just having to process all of the toxins that are coming in from our environment. Memory loss, even to the point of Alzheimer's, coming in as an aluminum toxicity with some of the things that have been shown. Neurological disorders of all the chemicals and environmental toxins that irritate the nervous system. Obesity, because when you have a lot of toxins, the body has to store them somewhere, so it manufactures fat cells in order to store those. Skin disorders like eczema, psoriasis, and rashes. I've seen a lot of eczema cases that the root cause has been heavy metals, and once having heavy metals removed from their mouth with dental work, a lot of the eczema has cleared up.
So it's really kind of likely that all chronic illness at least involves some level of toxicity that needs to be dealt with, right?
We have all of these listed. That there weren't very many of these diseases that were prevalent before we started adding chemicals to society. So I think if you historically look at it, it makes more sense.
Yeah, well, let's look at some examples of some of the specific toxins that we're having to deal with in the body. So Kim, why don't you go ahead and talk about that?
We have pesticides, those lovely things that get sprayed on most of our food sources. A lot of these were actually originally created for chemical warfare, and they do act as endocrine disruptors. So what that means is they kind of block this little pathway of how hormones and nerve signal transmissions are supposed to get from one place to the other. It's like blowing up a bridge in between. It destroys it. And it does affect our environment. They, like birds are our indicator species, and actually in Florida there were cases showing where frogs and alligators were becoming sterile from the pesticide runoff that came off the lawns into the canals. So some of them also have the heavy metals in them.
Particularly arsenic.
And arsenic, and you would be surprised at how many of your household things that you're using, you know, you might think it's safe because you can buy it over the counter, and that's not necessarily the case. Also, they get concentrated in animal fat, so they become more potentiated.
And you have a list here of foods that are the most pesticide-contaminated foods. So
some get sprayed more than others. So there were several different sources for this, but in looking at some of the top 10 that were sprayed the most, strawberries was at the top of every single list that I looked at. And cherries and apples and apricots kind of all shifted around at what placement they had. Also cantaloupe, especially the ones coming in from Mexico, not to mention they're probably irradiated as well. Blackberries, pears, raspberries, nectarines, spinach is another big one, and peaches. And all of these like take on the pesticides, and that creates a xenoestrogen, which is an abnormal estrogen that can actually be cancer causing.
Okay.
Then we also have halogens. Let's look at the halogens here. The fluoride, the chlorine, the bromide, what they do is displace iodine. Iodine's our protector. It kind of keeps all of the tissues, the organs safe. It kind of gives them like a little force field or a little barrier in which to operate with. But a lot of the other halogens, like these three, the fluoride, the chlorine, and bromide, can actually cause free radical damage. And if they build up to a certain extent in the body that you're storing them, especially as with bromide, then it becomes a carcinogen. And also, all of three of these are very caustic and very irritating. You can remember that if you got in a pool and had too much chlorine.
That little hot tub with the shark swimming around in it is because a lot of people now are using bromide in hot tubs.
Because it doesn't have the smell of chlorine, but it doesn't make it any safer.
But it actually is worse. I mean, I can handle a little chlorine better than the bromide really is irritating to your skin and so forth.
And there are natural cell salts and even the silver shield that you can use as alternatives for that.
Yeah. Okay, and the next one is heavy metals.
Heavy metals. We have lots of heavy metals. This is not a rock band. Okay. We're looking at mercury, lead, arsenic, cadmium, aluminum, and there are quite a few others that affect us, but they damage the nervous and the immune system. They actually, depending on how they enter the body, if they enter in an intravenous way, as with mercury, it can actually bind to the DNA and it gets stored in the cells, and then they keep duplicating an abnormal structure. But most of the time it's just stored in the fat cells.
And the batteries, of course, are nickel-cadmium batteries, or both nickel and cadmium are toxic metals. So people, how do we get exposed to this stuff? Well, it's all over the place in our environment and so forth. Another solution is petrochemicals and solvents.
And these, I mean, it's amazing how many of these you just have in your household, and products that you wouldn't even imagine, like gasoline and even antifreeze. I was reading the labels on some dog treats the other day, and one of the ingredients was listed by the chemical name, and it was actually antifreeze.
Amazing.
So propylene glycol. So the glues, solvents, paints, and especially household cleaners, those are they're huge for the chemicals that are coming in. So causing headaches, coughing, allergy reactions, just a general debilitating of the immune system, just general illness that you can't really figure out what's going on. Sometimes they'll elevate cholesterol because the cholesterol is trying to manufacture at higher amounts to protect you. It's there to save your life from a lot of the chemical exposure. And then another thing is just neurological damage, and that's sometimes where a lot of the onset of the autoimmune disorders come in.
Yeah, because these chemicals like gasoline and solvents and everything dissolve fat, and so basically get into your body. They can actually dissolve the fat in your nerves and create short-circuiting, so to speak, in your nervous system. Now let's talk about how we detoxify our body, part two. We gotta clean ourselves out, obviously, because we're exposed to all this stuff, as well as we have to keep good elimination just from the normal endotoxins or toxins generated by the body. So the body actually has 4 chimneys. The primary eliminative channels are the gastrointestinal tract, i.e. the colon, and the secondary, the urinary tract. And then we also have some secondary eliminative channels. The skin, which includes the sweat glands and oil ducts, can take up as an extra channel of elimination, and the respiratory tract, through the secretion of mucus, can also be a chimney to eliminate toxins. So in this next model, I show the little furnace analogy. Instead of having 1 chimney, we actually have 4. And the colon is usually the chimney that gets plugged in most people the first, and that causes toxins to build up, and the skin may try to eliminate them, or they may try to be eliminated through the urinary system or the lungs. And what we generally do is suppress those eliminative functions rather than helping the body to clean out. Internally, the liver acts as a major organ of detoxification. The liver filters toxins out of the blood and chemically alters them through enzyme systems so that they can either be put back into the bloodstream to be eliminated through the kidneys, or dumped in the bile to be eliminated to the digestive tract. And this little fact is really important to understand for what we're going to talk about with cleansing. When you're doing colon cleanse, you're not actually just cleansing the colon, you're also cleansing the whole body, because by getting the liver to flush toxins through the bile, you're binding those toxins and carrying them out of the body through the digestive tract. And this is one of the ways the body has of eliminating things. So let's look at some of the tools that we have for doing this cleansing. But before we get into this, let's talk about some of the causes of constipation. So Kim?
Okay, well, I would say the number one on the list here is dehydration. Just not getting an adequate amount of pure water. Lack of fiber. We don't get nearly the 35 grams of fiber that is suggested in our dietary intake. Intestinal inflammation. That's going to cause an irritation to the colon, so you're not going to get proper peristalsis to keep things moving. And a lot of times people will respond under stress with the colon spasms, but still not eliminating effectively. They're just eliminating, a lot of times even just water, that you're not getting a complete bowel movement. Lack of exercise, just keeping things moving. Lack of digestive enzymes. When you're not breaking stuff down, it's going to get stored. So, and an imbalance of friendly flora. So you don't have enough good bacteria as opposed to the bad bacteria. So it slows things down. There's not enough energy production to move things.
So when it comes to colon cleansing tools, let's talk about tool number one. And that is water.
Which is the water. And this is really an important detoxification tool. You can't move anything without the water. So I have one of my little patients, and she said that dilution is the solution to the pollution. So
that's very good.
Using the water is your dilution. So you're diluting the concentration of the toxins so that they can be moved. It's needed by every elimination system that we have. So it's really important to get a purified water from a good source. And the formula would be to do a 1/2 ounce per pound of body weight per day. So you just take your body weight, divide it by 2, and that's the number of ounces of day minimum that you need of water. And that doesn't mean that you sit and you guzzle the whole amount, say it's 60 ounces, at one time, because that does put more stress on the tissues and the kidneys. It's to sip it slowly throughout the day.
Drink water throughout the day. Primarily between meals, not with meals. So if you're a 150-pound person, that's 75 ounces of water. A quart of water is 32 ounces, so 64, 2 quarts. That's a little over 2 quarts of water. Most people need at least a 1/2 gallon of water a day, and larger people may need as many as 3/4 of a gallon or more. Our second tool is fiber. Now, fiber helps the colon in several ways. One, it reduces the colon transit time, which makes things move more quickly through the colon. It bulks and lubricates the stool. I like to think of it as a broom that pushes the things through the digestive tract. It absorbs toxins from the colon and also from the bile, from the liver, to pull them out of the body. And fiber actually feeds the friendly bacteria in your colon and helps them grow better. We have some great fiber products that we can look at. One of them is Nature's 3. That's one of my favorite. That's psyllium, apple pectin, and oat bran. Low Clo is a more gentle fiber blend that was designed to help lower cholesterol, but is a good all-round fiber product. Everybody's Fiber is a fiber product that's more for irritable bowel, spastic colons, people who have more sensitive digestive tracts. Psyllium Holds Combination is actually the strongest of these products so far. It is mostly made of psyllium with a little licorice and hibiscus for flavor. I often add it with half ground flaxseed. And activated charcoal, while it's not actually technically a fiber, is very good at absorbing toxins in the digestive tract and is another great product for helping to clean out the colon. Kim, tool number 3, enzymes.
Enzymes taken with meals are actually going to interact with the food. To do an enzyme therapy would be taking it between meals. And then it can help break down undigested foodstuffs or other activity going on in the blood, a lot of the toxins, even parasitical activity. So it helps improve the intestinal absorption of nutrients. You're getting uptake through the small intestine to get transport. So it puts all the little nutrients on the bus and they get delivered home happily where they're supposed to be. So you can reduce buildup of toxins by breaking them down so the body can actually process them. just by using enzymes between meals. Sometimes they will have a little bit stool softening action with people just because it's starting to break these toxins down, and it does activate like an energy or transportation mechanism to get things moving.
Okay, and talk about some of the enzyme products.
Some of the products that we use are the ProActizyme Plus. This one is a very good one to take between meals as well as with meals, that has the lipase, protease, and the amylase in it. Then we have the high potency protease, which is used between meals for a lot of cancer therapies to actually break down the abnormal cellular structures of the cancer cells. So it can be used for a detox to help support that by taking it between meals as well to help break down the toxins. And a lot of your toxins will bind to proteins, and protease specifically works on proteins. Small intestine detox. This is a formula with marshmallow and pepsin. And pepsin is usually produced in the pancreas, so that's going to help break down other proteins as well. So any protein, abnormal protein structure, including bacteria, viral components, things like that, it can help with. I also used small intestine detox too for people that have malabsorption issues. They have that little orange halo around the pupil of the eye. And it helps really to uptake a lot of the nutrients through the small intestine. It can help with leaky gut scenario as well, just by binding with some of the toxins and breaking them down so that they're not in such large particles. And then another one is bowel detox. And this one has become one of my more favorite formulas as well, because it's not quite as strong as some of the other colon movers, but it has a nice enzyme in it, and it has a lot of the ingredients to help with the bile response.
Number 4, tool number 4 is cleansing formulas. This is basically a formula designed to just detoxify the body. And generally what these formulas do is they support liver detoxification and increase bile production, so they're hepatic and cholagogue, and they also will generally improve kidney function, have a mild diuretic effect, and aid lymphatic flow and tissue detoxification. So these are taken as part of the cleanse to do kind of the general cleansing work in the body and get those toxins moving out so that they can be bound up in the colon and removed from the body. And some of our favorite cleansing formulas include all cell detox, which is a great one for helping the liver, the lymphatics, the kidneys. It basically supports all of those eliminative functions. EnviroDetox is another one. It's more specific to the liver and colon and is designed to help remove environmental pollutants. One of my favorites is the Chinese liver balance formula, or Tao He, which basically helps aid liver function and removes congestion and stagnation in the liver. And then heavy metal detox, which helps the liver pull out the heavy metals out of the system. Okay, moving on to our tool number 5, we have laxatives. And laxatives are designed to decrease colon transit time, not increase it. The colon transit time is the time from when you ingest the food to where it comes out as residue on the other end. And ideally, when you ingest a meal, the residue of that meal should be passed in about 16 to 18 hours. Now, the average colon transit time for people in North America, from my reading, is about 72 hours, or about 3 days, which is a little too long, which means that the residue is sitting in your colon. So what we use, this is what you use laxative for, is to help this. So,
well, we are rather possessive as Westerners, so we do tend to hang on to things. So, anthraquinone and glycosides are some tools. They're actually these yellow-brown dyes that are found in a lot of herbs, and they do have a stimulant laxative action, which means they irritate the tissue a little bit. The intestinal bacteria gets activated by this irritation, which causes the colon to contract and expand, which is known as peristalsis. And then it inhibits water and electrolyte absorption into the intestines. So it's pushing it through. It keeps the moisture in the stool so that you don't get the dry constipation. Now, they don't directly irritate mucous membranes. However, they can stain certain mucous membranes if you've had testing done. And I believe that's because there's been damage or inflammation on that intestinal lining, so it has more porosity to it because it is damaged, and it can embed in that, just like if you had a sponge wiping up stain as opposed to trying to wipe it up with a piece of plastic. It's not going to adhere to something that has a slicker surface to it. So when you have healthy mucosal membrane linings, usually you don't get the staining because it's not as porous.
Of course, they are yellow-brown dyes, so.
Yeah.
Well, some of the major herbs that contain these anthraquinone glycosides include Cascara sagrada, buckthorn, turkey rhubarb, aloe vera, which actually is not the aloe vera gel, but it's the green part of the leaf that they don't put into the gel, and it's got a lot of those in it, and the herb senna. And we also have some formulas based on these herbs. The most popular one is LBS2. LB extract is a liquid formula of LBS2. LBX is a slightly gentler formula, and senna combination is I call it the herbal dynamite. So when nothing else works, that's what you take to blast things loose. Now, Kim, tell us about some of the benefits and contraindications of these laxative herbs.
Well, there's a time and a place for everything. So some of the benefits for using laxative herbs are really to help with occasional constipation, not for relying on them or becoming dependent upon them for a daily basis. So when you're doing a colon cleanse or combining it with fiber or other herbs for colon health, then it's perfectly fine to do a lot of the laxative herbs. It's important to help when you're doing parasite cleansing because you want to make sure those get flushed out and they're not just hanging out in the colon. And they're also relieving fevers and acute congestion because a lot of the root cause of that, if you think of all of the mucosal lining from the digestive tube all the way through the colon, when that becomes irritated or inflamed and you get congestion, then it's really necessary to move the irritant out of the body. So it would be very beneficial to do them then. And then also to stimulate bile flow. So they can actually become very helpful with gallbladder issues as well to make sure that the colon is moving with the bile activity. Sometimes we don't want to always use a laxative, and some people are not tolerant of them, especially if they are prone to more spastic bowel conditions. And that means they're going back between bouts of diarrhea and extreme constipation, and they don't usually have a regular elimination time. I would not recommend using them with someone that's pregnant or nursing. Also with inflammatory bowel disorder like your celiacs, your Crohn's, your colitis, your diverticulitis, your irritable bowel syndrome. Doing some gentler, more mucilaginous things might help with that. And it's really not the best choice for extremely weak or depleted people because they just don't have the vital energy to support doing a laxative.
Right, and because anytime you're doing something that stimulates something, you're not creating energy, you're using up energy. And so when a person's weak and depleted, anything that's stimulating the body to do something actually is going to tend to deplete it further. A good way to tell if people are going to be able to tolerate stimulant laxatives is to look in their eye at something called the collarette or autonomic nerve wreath. And I've got arrows pointing to that. You can see it's that little ridge that goes around the iris that's normally about 1/3 of the way from the pupil to the outside edge of the iris. In the next slide, you'll see what is a tight collarette. And to actually help you see it, because the collarette is kind of hard to see on that one, I've put one white circle over the pupil, and then the next white circle with the black arrow pointing to it is where the collarette is located. You notice in this case it's a lot closer than 1/3 in. This is a tendency to a spastic bowel condition where the bowel is prone to getting muscle spasms and closing down. And using Cascara and stimulant laxatives, often these people will become addicted to this because it keeps stimulating their colon to contract, but it doesn't really help their colon to relax and rebuild energy charge. The next eye is actually where the stimulant laxatives do their best effect. Here the collarette is way out farther out. It's about halfway out instead of a third of the way out. And this is a tendency towards a ballooning of the colon and the formation of bowel pockets. And in this case, this stimulant laxative are really helpful because they stimulate the peristalsis and get the colon contracting again. So they're better indicated or better tolerated with individuals which have this tendency towards the ballooning. Now, we just recently acquired a great new formula. I actually had a hand in putting it together, called Gentle Move. And this is a herbal formula that's an alternative to anthraquinone-based laxatives and can even be used to help overcome people who've become dependent on anthraquinone-based laxatives. And it contains magnesium hydroxide, triphala extract, yellow dock ginger, slippery elm, and marshmallow. And the active constituent in this is magnesium hydroxide. Magnesium hydroxide is a natural salt of magnesium that attracts and retains fluid in the bowel. And the magnesium also is important because it helps to relax muscle spasms and aids in cellular energy production. So this particular form of magnesium, it sort of has the same effect of what you think of as milk of magnesia, which is another magnesium salt that's used as laxative that basically goes in and holds water in the colon. The triphala, which is the next ingredient in this, is an ancient Ayurvedic formula that contains 3 fruits: Hirataki, Bibataki, and Amalaki. Amalaki. Those are hard words for me to pronounce sometimes. And these 3 plants have been used in India for thousands of years for their gentle laxative and blood purifying effects. And there's actually an old Indian saying, no mother, do not worry if you have triphala. It's got that popular of a reputation of being a useful remedy for just general health problems, as you'll see in a minute. So let's look at each of these 3 fruits and see what they do. The first one, Hirataki, is a bitter, sour, astringent, salty, sweet and warm plant that has a mild laxative effect. It's also astringent, so basically what it does is it helps to tone up leaky gut syndrome. It lubricates the intestinal tract. It helps to fight parasites. It's antiparasitic. It's alterative, meaning it helps the liver and lymphatics and helps purify the blood. It relaxes muscle spasms. So it's a really helpful herb for chronic constipation, and especially where there's nervousness, anxious feelings, and heaviness. The next herb in this formula, Amalaki, is sour, astringent, sweet, pungent, bitter, and cooling. It has, again, an astringent action, which means, again, it tones up the intestinal membranes. This is one of the big problems when the intestines become inflamed. The intestinal membranes leak and basically allow toxins to be transported across the intestinal wall more readily. So astringents tone that up. But it also has a mild laxative action, the alterative action, and it reduces fever and heat. So this herb cools ulcerations, soothes intestinal inflammation, gets rid of burning sensations, is very helpful for alternating diarrhea and constipation, which you get in the spastic bowel, and it also treats skin eruptions and infections. And the third herb in triphala, Bibataki, is astringent, sweet, bitter, antispasmodic, pungent, and warming. And it's used to treat asthma, bronchial problems, allergies, and to remove excess mucus from the system. So all in all, triphala has a lot of benefits, and here are some of them. It's antioxidant and anti-inflammatory, so it's protecting you against chronic and degenerative disease. It enhances circulation, has a moderate lowering effect on blood pressure, and has a heart protecting effect. It supports the adrenal function. It improves liver function. It is hepatoprotective, so it protects the liver from environmental toxins. It improves digestion. And continuing on to the next slide, besides improving the liver and digestive function, it also has an expectorant action, so it helps expel mucus. It's antiviral, antibacterial, and anti-allergenic, and it's a balanced energy. In Ayurvedic medicine, there are 5 tastes. This contains all 5 tastes, so it has herbs that have all 5 basic energetics, so it helps to balance out the function of things. Triphala is used in Ayurvedic medicine to treat constipation, indigestion, flatulence. It's used for people who have poor appetite, who have a heavily coated tongue, who get digestive headaches, who have sinus congestion, joint pain, who are lethargic, who have eye problems, and general toxicity and weakness. Now, besides the magnesium and the triphala, there are 4 other herbs in Gentle Move, and one of them is yellow dock. Yellow dock actually is a lot like triphala. It has just a little teeny bit of anthraquinones, and by the way, one of those fruits, I don't remember which one, has a little bit of anthraquinone too, but it's a very, very small amount, and yet it's an astringent at the same time. So basically, it actually is used to treat both constipation and diarrhea. So it basically has a balancing effect. Ginger aids digestion, and slippery elm marshmallow are soothing and cooling to the digestive membranes. So overall, here's the benefits of this formula. It provides a mild laxative action while tonifying and improving colon health. It reduces intestinal inflammation. It helps to normalize bowel function for people who have become dependent on stimulant laxatives. A fantastic formula. And now, Kim, I understand you've got some experiences you want to share with using this formula.
Well, again, it's not exactly relative to colon health, but indirectly, I have used this. I found people tell me that it's actually, by starting to take this, has helped them so much to relieve depression. And it's actually like they have more cognitive thinking. They tell me their memory has gotten better, and I did not do anything for their memory other than work on the colon health with the Gentle Move. I have also had somebody that had a stroke, like with the eye, and we used some different, some antioxidants, but put in the Gentle Move, and it actually started relieving pressure in the sinus cavity for his eye, so he could start seeing better out of the eye.
You know, and that's interesting because if you look at the actual uses of the triphala, it's respiratory decongestion. It helps eye problems. I mean, this is a really great formula, and I have for many years been concerned with people who have to take stimulant laxatives like LBS2 or LBX or Senna every day to be able to go to the bathroom, because what's really happening is their colon muscle is becoming weakened and depleted. And I've often used vitamin C and magnesium to help rebuild the colon, but this particular formula works incredibly well in helping to rebuild the colon energy and normalize bowel function, as well as having, you know, numerous other health benefit effects. So it's safe. This is one that's safe to take long term. In other words, you can use it over the long term, and it's actually going to help your colon improve the longer you take it.
And well, and some of the other things we've seen with this, as far as congestion that you were talking about, of the uses with this, and doing QFA, urine and saliva testing, you get minerals that can become congested in the saliva, and this has really balanced out those numbers just by using this product. So people are getting more efficient use of their mineral uptake.
That's great. Now here's how to use this product. A mild dose, which is sort of a maintenance dose, would be 2 capsules 1 to 2 times per day, probably most likely when you first wake up in the morning or before going to bed. Now, if you're seriously constipated or you're dependent on stimulant laxatives, you could actually take 6 to 9 capsules per day, which is 2 to 3 capsules 3 times daily. You actually could even go higher than that, up to like 4 capsules 3 times daily. So this is a dose you'd start at, and as your colon starts to function better, you can gradually start dropping down and maintain at about 2 to 4 capsules a day, or in other words, like 2 capsules twice a day or 1 capsule twice a day. Be sure, as with all cleansing formulas, to take this with plenty of water. Everything needs water in order to work properly. I've had really good results with this formula. I'm very, very happy with it, and so is Kim. Okay, Kim, why don't you tell us a little about our final tool, number 6, antispasmodics.
Antispasmodics actually relax the intestinal cramps that some people have, especially when they have the spastic colon. And it actually helps relieve some of the intestinal irritation. So it's really good for constipation due to stress. So when you release that stress hormone, that cortisol, then a lot of times you go into that fight or flight syndrome. So, when we're under a lot of stress, we don't think about elimination processes, and then the body gets used to shutting it off and we go into that constipation scenario. So when you start having cramping, we have some antispasmodic remedies that have worked very well. One of the first ones is magnesium complex. This can loosen stool with some people. The magnesium complex with the different magnesiums in it, as opposed to just using magnesium oxide, is a little gentler on the colon, so you can go up in larger amounts without causing too loose of a stool. Cramp relief is actually a formula that was formulated for women for menstrual cramps, but it works really well with leg cramps, with colon cramps, any type of spasming that's going on in the body.
Actually, I had a hand in formulating that one, and I'm upset they put a pink label on it.
Well, sometimes you're just so macho you need more pink.
Okay.
Intestinal Soothe and Build. I use Intestinal Soothe and Build a lot. And it helps, especially, it was formulated for celiacs, Crohn's, and colitis. And it actually helps to soothe the intestinal lining so you're not getting that bile reaction with that particular bacteria of irritation. So it calms that whole response down. Plus it has some very soothing mucilaginous in there, like your slippery elm, and that also helps to bind the toxins like a fiber as well to get things moving without a lot of the spasmodic irritation.
Great. Well, we're going to wrap up in the time remaining by talking about some cleansing programs. We're going to wrap all this stuff together and see how we can actually clean out the colon. And we're going to start with our first cleansing program, is what I call daily housekeeping, which is the once-a-day cleanse. This is basically the cleanse that you can do on an ongoing basis to keep your digestive tract in good health. And it involves taking 1 to 2 scoops of your favorite fiber blend, psyllium hulls combination, Nature's 3, low-clo, whatever, in a glass of some little bit of juice with some Tigo. Remember, Tigo is an antioxidant, anti-inflammatory agent. One of the big problems that you have with colon is intestinal irritation and inflammation. So you put a little Tigo in with the thing that's going to cool down the inflammation irritation. And then you take this with enzymes. You're really taking these enzymes, between meals, because you're taking this drink first thing in the morning. So these enzymes are not going to be used to break down food. They're going to be transported into your small intestines and colon, where they're going to actually break down toxins and debris. Now, there are 2 optional things with this, and these are things I don't recommend that you do every day, but you can do these to make this into a little bit stronger cleanse. One is to add a cleansing formula like all cell detox or environmental detox, or the other one is, if you have a tendency to constipation, to take some gentle move with this to help keep the colon working properly. This is the kind of cleanse I like to do on an ongoing basis. Sometimes I get off of it, but when I actually am doing this, taking the fiber with the enzymes and so forth first thing in the morning, my health is generally much better than it is when I forget to take it. In fact, I'm a little bit congested because I've kind of been neglecting my daily housekeeping, sort of like getting the dust in the house, from not doing your vacuuming on a regular basis. Now, to do a little more, cleanse to kind of get the body detoxified, especially in acute illness or any place where you want to clean out the system quickly. I like to do the 3-day radiator flush, which is basically a juice fast. And what it is for 3 days you basically drink nothing but juice. You don't eat any food. And some options here are to use freshly made fruit or vegetable juice, which is I would say if you have your own juicer, you want to make some carrot, celery, beet juice kind of thing, or some apple, put some apple with some carrot, celery, or beet. Focus more on vegetable juices than fruit juices. They actually work a little better in the cleanse. A very popular option is to make lemonade with real lemons and maple syrup and add a little teeny bit of cayenne to it. That's the Master Cleanse that was popularized by Stanley Burroughs. I actually, I don't really think that bottled juice is the greatest thing to do a cleanse with, but if you add a little Tygo to it, that'll help make it a little bit better. But those are some options for the juice. Then you want to take some herbs to kind of help your body detoxify. And here are some of your options for the detoxifying herbs. One is a trick I actually learned from Kim, which is to put some lymphatic drainage in a quart of water and sip it throughout the day to clear the lymphatics. If your kidneys are a little sluggish, you can add some kidney drainage formula to that mixture. If you have a tendency to water retention, take some Chinese kidney activator, 3 capsules 3 times a day. If you're a little bit constipated, go ahead and take a laxative with some magnesium to help prevent cramps, or take some of the new Gentle Move formula. And basically over the course of 3 days, you're just going to basically, clear your system out. Now, Kim, you have some comments on cleansing as far as working with chronic ailments and cancer and so forth, right?
I just find that it's really essential that especially if you're slowing down energy production to cancer cells, either with the PAPA or the chemo program, it's essential that you're going to cleanse out the toxins that you're breaking down. So I usually do a 2-week cleansing program in between protocols. And we do have another video on that.
Right. And it's interesting because that's one of the things, even when the people are doing chemotherapy and radiation and they're getting all that kill off, they're still not doing the detoxification to help the body remove that. And that's one of the things that's very, very important. Now, there's some great prepackaged cleanses. The 2 cleanses I gave you are kind of do-it-yourself cleanses. The Tao He Cleanse, the Clean Start, Dieter's Cleanse, and the Para Cleanse are all prepackaged cleanses. So in our remaining time, we're going to talk about each of these cleanses, kind of compare them a little bit, discuss what each one of them does, and what we use each one for. So let's start with my personal favorite, the Tao He Cleanse, which uses the Chinese liver balance, the Chinese liver balance TCM formula, the all-cell detox formula, which is one of my favorite cleansing formulas, the laxative formula LBS2, some capsules of psyllium hulls, some burdock root, which is a blood purifier, and some ATC concentrated black walnut, which is a mild antiparasitic agent as well as supplies iodine and helps fight infection. I really like this cleanse. This is a good cleanse. It has some really good benefits of working on the liver and helping to enhance liver function and improve liver detoxification. It also has ingredients that improve kidney function and lymphatic drainage. It stimulates digestion, and it has some mild anti-parasitic action. Kim, what do you think of the Tao He Cleanse?
I use this one a lot, and it's just monitor how people are going to do. You might have to reduce the actual number of packets that you're taking per day, especially if it's their first time cleansing, and just gently take it up over the period of the cleansing. As far as with the liver too, a lot of times this one will relieve people that have had chronic migraines over the years as well. So I find the Tao He Cleanse a good one to start with when you're working with that, or any time that somebody's been on a lot of drugs that they've their doctor's taken them off from, or they've gently come off from them, even over-the-counter use like Tylenol and acetaminophen and other things like that. Using the Tao He Cleanse will flush the liver. And
it's a good cleanse for people who have that biliary constitution eye pattern, where they have that tendency to digestive problems and liver toxicity, and I find it very beneficial for that. I do have some suggestions for using Tao He Cleanse. I don't think it has enough fiber. I think you're going to get better benefit from it if you add a heaping teaspoon or 2 of one of the fiber products with juice or water before breakfast and again before bedtime, so that you absorb some of the toxins to get released. You always want to drink plenty of water, which we've stressed, and I really feel that taking digestive enzymes when you're on a cleanse really helps to enhance the cleansing process a lot. I want to mention also, when you're doing a cleanse like this and you're taking the fiber, a lot of times you'll pass this kind of stringy, yucky, ropey material. And there are pictures of this on the internet. If you go look up cleansing on the internet, you'll see people, these gross pictures of people with this slimy stuff. What they maintain in these pictures is that this slimy, ropey stuff is actually coming off of the lining of your colon, that it's sloughing off the colon, and that somehow you had all this, dark encrusted fecal matter in your colon. As I've gone in, studied this in greater depth, I've heard from both medical doctors and herbalists who worked with medical doctors that, if your colon actually became encrusted like that, you'd be dead within a couple of days, because the colon is an organ of assimilation. It is absorbing water and certain nutrients. If you became actually, got encrusted with fecal matter, you'd die within, like I say, 2 or 3 days. What is actually happening is that material is not coming off the lining of the colon. That is actually the psyllium, the fiber that is in the cleanse, interacting with the toxins coming out of the bile and creating that slimy, ropey, rubbery material. So it is actually detoxifying the body, but what it's doing is it's absorbing the toxins that the liver is dumping out of the tissues, and that's what's creating all of that gunky stuff that's coming out that eventually passes. It's not coming off the lining of your colon. Let's talk a little bit about Clean Start.
Clean Start's a good colon cleanse. A lot of people like this package because the fiber's already included in it. The Enviro Detox, we already listed all those environmental toxins that we're exposed to all the time. And then it does have one of the stimulants in here, the LBS2. So it's a good general cleansing program for a lot of people. I probably wouldn't choose it if somebody's prone to spastic bowel, or if they're prone to inflammatory bowel disorders, or if they have autoimmune conditions going on. Sometimes they just don't respond. They'll get the spasms and the cramping with it. If you want to keep taking it when they're having that, they could add the cramp relief to it. It is a good fiber packet that's in there. Just make sure that you're doing the fiber packet separate from when you're doing the other ingredients with the formula.
Okay. And Dieter's Cleanse. This is actually one, it's indicated as like a weight loss cleanse, but it's actually useful for a whole lot more than that, isn't it? Do you want to tell us about Dieter's Cleanse?
I use this one so much. A lot of times people that are having sugar cravings, or they have problems regulating insulin with like hypoglycemia, where your blood sugar bottoms out, and they want to do a cleanse, this is usually the one that I choose. The SF in here with the chickweed in it helps with fat emulsification. So if you're storing toxins in fat cells and you start breaking that down to release those, you need to make sure that it's moving. So the bowel detox complements that, as well as the ingredients in the SF formula. It has a little cascara in it, and you're adding the LBS2. So again, probably not a good choice for an inflammatory bowel disorder, but it does break down the fats. Now, the master gland is in there. I find this really interesting how it complements each other, because when you start breaking fats down, you're also going to change how hormones are combusting. So the master gland is a good overall endocrine formula that helps keep the hormones regulated when you're emulsifying fats, which is very important so that you don't get mood swings and hot flashes and a whole host of other hormonal issues that could go on. It also helps with the nutrient transport. So it helps with the uptake, because the Live A in there is a milder liver cleanse than the Chinese liver balance. So that one is going to get all of those pathways of the liver open, the ones that are responsible for nutrient transport. So you're going to get the combustion that you need in the liver.
Yeah, well, like the Tauhi Cleanse, this one doesn't have any significant amount of dietary fiber with it. So I again recommend that you take a fiber supplement, first thing in the morning, and then again in the evening while you're on this cleanse. Drink plenty of water when you're on this or any other cleanse, because what was that saying, friend? The solution?
Dilution is the solution to the pollution.
I like that. I'm going to remember that. Dilution is the solution to the pollution. The last one of our pre-packaged cleansing programs programs we want to talk about is the Paracleanse. This contains the Pawpaw Cellreg Herbal Pumpkin Artemisia combination and the black walnut hulls. And this is basically for getting rid of nasty little critters that may be inhabiting your intestinal tract. I highly recommend this cleanse for anybody who has pets. Anybody who has dogs or cats or is around animals of any kind should probably do this cleanse at least once a year, maybe twice a year. If you're going to, do a parasite cleanse on your pets, you should do one on yourself at the same time. It's also a good cleanse if you travel to some third world country. When you get back, you should probably do a paracleanse. And a parasite cleanse can also be useful when you have kind of like just vague health problems that just don't seem to be getting better. That's often an indication you may have some parasitic activity in the colon. The best way to use this is to start by actually doing the Tauhi cleanse first to remove toxins and improve the bowel function. Then do one round of the Paracleanse. It's a 10-day cleansing program, so you're going to take the packets for 10 days. Then you take a 1-week break.
Usually during that 1-week break, Stephen, I will put Artemisia in to just go ahead and kill off any larvae or any other developing things in there.
Oh, okay. And then you do a second round of the Paracleanse. Now, I wouldn't do a parasite cleanse excessively. Once or twice a year is ample time. Antiparasitic herbs can actually be very irritating to the colon, so you don't want to overdo this program. I personally have had tremendous benefits from cleansing. I had chronic sinus problems growing up, went to the doctor, over and over again, and it wasn't until I did a really good colon cleanse that I actually got some real permanent relief from my chronic sinus problems. And I noticed periodically that my sinus problems start to come back a little bit because that's one of my kind of genetic weaknesses. And when I do a nice colon cleanse, they disappear again. I've also seen people with arthritis benefit from colon cleanses, asthma, skin conditions. Kim, what are some of the other things that you've seen benefit from having colon cleanse?
I have a lot of women that actually their hormone therapy tends to work better after doing a colon cleanse because they're getting that combustion and uptake like they should. Clearer thinking, people that tell me they've had like foggy thinking or can't remember where you put your keys kind of thing. A lot of times cleaning the colon out, you just feel uplifted. You feel cleared
lighter.
Everything. You feel lighter. And just antidepressants, instead of running out and getting the newest prescription on the market, try doing a colon cleanse first because 95% of your serotonin receptor sites are in the colon. So it does help tremendously. Also with like ADD and ADHD, doing some colon cleansing has actually helped a lot of parents manage that better. Yeah,
and headaches. A lot of people who have chronic headaches, migraines, or just a general feeling of what we call malaise, where you just kind of feel yucky and lethargic and you don't feel very good and you're a little congested. This is all good indications for doing colon cleanse. Another one is if you have really severe foot or body odor. That's another good sign that you probably could benefit from a colon cleanse.
So if somebody tells you you're full of it, just rush right out and do a cleanse.
Stuff right out and do a cleanse. I really think that many people, could save themselves a lot of doctor bills if they just, took better care of their colon and did a periodic colon cleanse. Now, you can be fanatical about this. I know some people who are like detoxing all the time. You don't want to be detoxing all the time, but you can do like the once-a-day housekeeping of just taking your fiber and enzymes to keep your colon properly regulated on a regular basis, and that's perfectly safe. And you can also use the gentle move with the Triphalia as a regular maintenance thing for the colon. The actual cleanses, though, should be done periodically to clean out the colon, and then improvements of diet, drinking water, and other things should be used to maintain good colon health. We hope that you've enjoyed this program, and we hope that you'll go out and use this material. I mean, try it, do a cleanse, and see how you feel. You may be pleasantly surprised at how much lighter you feel, how much healthier you feel, and how much more clearly you can think when you clean out your colon with these suggestions.